in developing countries, the prevailing narrative is often, not always, but often around those poor, impoverished brown people. The reality for those who've travelled extensively around the developing world, as I have, is often very different. If you want to see the most entrepreneurial people there are, go to the developing world. There have also been additional surveys by KPMG and others that show that people, particularly young people in developing nations, want to set up their own businesses, are almost inherently entrepreneurial. The missing factor, of course, is often stable finance, stable and affordable finance. You've alluded already to the situations that people often have in the developing world, and also in advanced nations, around loan sharks, inaccessibility of finance, often because of exorbitant interest rates. And then there's also the fundamental reason, which is that conventional finance has no interest in consumer level banking services for people in the developing world. They have no interest because it's a risky endeavor. People in the developing world largely cannot satisfy KYC and AML requirements, so are too risky. And so the main global financial institutions tend to ignore, not completely, but often tend to ignore people in the developing world, which is why there is this crisis of unbanked people without access to any form of financial services. And so what's happened is there's been all sorts of innovation with telephone-based systems, with people wheelbarrowing money around in some nations, fairly advanced, sophisticated alternatives. We need something better, and as we're all aware, blockchain has the potential to provide that, particularly in terms of a system which is transparent, equitable, and allows people to access small amounts in an affordable and safe way.
People just need to be able to save money and make transactions. These entrepreneurs in the developing companies, they know how to make a business work. They know how to put some products together and get them in front of some customers. But then, what do they do with the money they have, and how do they prevent it from deflating? We've had John O'Connor on here before. We've had Alan Verbner on here before. They described those problems that they've seen. They've traveled around like you as well. Alan Verbner's had to live with them, where they have inflation run away and it degrades the value of his savings by 40% in a year because of the inflation. And then over in other places that John O'Connor told us about, is people will save money. They'll put cash under a pillow in a box, or they'll bury it underground somewhere, right? And so that's just the extreme examples. But how do you bring in the millions and millions of people who are trying to build businesses, and they need a way to move money, move it faster, move it safely, move it securely, and that's the kind of stuff we're looking at, right? Especially with Marlowe being a domain-specific language for financial smart contracts. All right,
absolutely.
So we'll see. We'll see later in October. We'll start seeing these ideas coming out from the WIO Hackathon, and then we'll start know what are people starting to solve. What are they looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, we're looking at the final judging taking place on the 23rd and 24th of October. We'll almost certainly be making the announcement of successful proposals on the 24th. As I say, it's the 75th anniversary of the establishment of the UN itself, and we're hopeful that we'll have some really exciting proposals, and hopefully, there may even be some lessons to learn around the kind of folks that we get involved in challenges like this, and how we can lower the barrier to entry in order that people who are not currently hugely blockchain savvy or who are not currently able to code have a way of becoming involved, because although they don't have those technical skills, they do have a very clear drive and some good ideas for solutions that can help to deal with some of the problems facing developing nations.
Excellent. And we'll start seeing these proposals on Catalyst. After the 10th, we could start looking up on there?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And it's not a sneak peek because it's open source.
It's open source.
But we get in there and start poking around. Hey, what are they doing?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, we may even get some people using the ideas before we've even made funding decisions. And the other great thing about that is, even if there are some projects which don't receive funding, well, they still exist there. There are ideas that people have contributed, and other people can pick them up and run with those ideas, either in partnership with the people who've developed their ideas, or on their own, or with other people. And that's one of the great beauties of open source. Just because something's not judged not to have absolutely mapped to the particular requirements of this particular challenge, doesn't mean that those ideas are not without merit. And that's part of the reason why the open source approach is so critical. These might be ideas, solutions currently still looking for problems, but when those problems arise, then those ideas are out there and people can pick up and run with them.